The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council stretched high above the assembled delegates, its transparent walls revealing the star-filled void of space beyond. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their designated sections, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors, shapes, and sizes throughout the enormous chamber. Ambassador David Harrison adjusted his formal Earth diplomatic uniform as he took his seat among the newest members of the galactic community. Beside him, Dr. Emily Watson reviewed her notes on alien customs, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun as she prepared for what should have been a routine diplomatic session. The session had been proceeding normally for the past 2 hours. Trade agreements were discussed, territorial disputes were mediated, and scientific discoveries were shared among the member species. Everything was exactly as it had been for the previous dozen sessions since Earth's admission to the Council 6 months ago. Then Ambassador Thane of the Eternal Zephyrans stood to address the assembly. A hush fell over the chamber immediately. The Zephyrans were the most respected species in the galaxy, having existed for over 10 million years. Their wisdom guided younger civilizations, their technology surpassed all others, and their peaceful nature had helped maintain galactic stability for countless centuries. When a Zephyran spoke, everyone listened. Thane's form was beautiful and otherworldly. His body appeared to be made of pure light, translucent and shimmering, constantly shifting between silver and gold. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with long, flowing appendages that served as both arms and wings. His face was elegant and serene, with large, luminous eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Honored delegates, Thane's voice resonated through the chamber without the need for translation devices. The Zephyrans had evolved beyond physical speech, communicating through pure thought transmission that every species could understand. We must address the matter of formal diplomatic relations with the newest member of our council. David straightened in his chair. This was it, the moment Earth had been waiting for. Formal relations with the Zephyrans would open doors to advanced technology, ancient knowledge, and guidance that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. The Zephyran Collective has carefully considered our position regarding the human species of Earth, Thane continued, his luminous form seeming to pulse within a light. After extensive deliberation and analysis, we have reached our decision. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the usual background hum of translation devices and life support systems seemed to quiet in anticipation. The Eternal Zephyrans formally decline all diplomatic contact with the human species. The words hit the assembly like a physical blow. Gasps, clicks, whistles, and various alien expressions of shock filled the chamber. David felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. Beside him, Dr. Watson's face went pale with disbelief. "Excuse me," David said, rising to his feet so quickly that his chair scraped against the crystal floor. "Ambassador Thane, with all due respect, I believe there may have been some misunderstanding. The Zephyrans have established formal relations with every species in galactic history." "Not every species, Ambassador Harrison," Thane replied, his ancient eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the chamber walls. "There have been exceptions." The Chancellor of the Crystalline Thorian Republic, whose body resembled living gemstone, chimed in with musical tones. "Ambassador Thane, surely you can provide some explanation for this unprecedented decision. The humans have shown remarkable progress and peaceful intentions." "The decision is not based on human character or intentions," Thane said quietly. "It is based on necessity. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Some paths, once taken, lead to consequences that affect more than a single species." Dr. Watson stood now, her scientific mind demanding answers. "What kind of consequences? What have we done to warrant this treatment?" Thane's form began to shimmer more intensely, as if he were struggling with some internal conflict. "You have done nothing wrong, Dr. Watson. In fact, that is precisely the problem. Humanity has developed exactly as we feared it would." "Feared?" David's voice rose with indignation. "We've been peaceful members of this council. We've shared our knowledge, followed all protocols, respected all agreements. What is there to fear?" "Everything," Thane whispered, and the single word seemed to echo through the chamber with ominous weight. "Dr. Watson, your species has been broadcasting electromagnetic signals into space for over a century, correct?" "Yes, radio waves, television signals, digital communications. It's natural technological progression," Emily replied, confused by the seemingly random question. "And these signals carry more than mere information, do they not? They carry the patterns of human thought, human emotion, human consciousness itself." "Well, yes, in a sense," Emily admitted. Our communications do reflect our neural patterns, but that's true of any technological species. No, Thane said firmly. It is not true of any species. Most civilizations develop communication methods that are purely functional. Humans have created a planet-wide network that broadcasts your consciousness, your creativity, your chaos, and your passion into the void of space with unprecedented intensity. The chamber was now completely silent, every delegate hanging on Thane's words. The signal you call progress, we call a beacon. What you see as advancement, we recognize as an invitation. And that invitation has already been received. By whom? David demanded. Thane's form began to fade, becoming more transparent with each passing moment. By those who should never have found us. The Zephyran Collective severs all contact with humanity not out of disrespect, but out of desperate hope that distance might still offer protection for the rest of the galaxy. Protection from what? Dr. Watson called out, but Thane was already disappearing. May the stars forgive us all, came his final words before he vanished completely, leaving behind only the faint scent of ozone and a chamber full of terrified aliens. David looked around the assembly and felt his blood run cold. The other delegates were no longer looking at the humans with curiosity or friendship. Instead, their expressions showed fear, pity, and something that looked disturbingly like farewell. 3 weeks had passed since the shocking announcement at the Galactic Council, and Dr. Emily Watson found herself working 18-hour days in the underground archives beneath the Xenological Research Institute in Geneva. The sterile white corridors hummed with activity as Earth's best scientists desperately searched for answers to the Zephyran mystery. Emily rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the holographic display floating in front of her. Thousands of data points created a three-dimensional map of known galactic civilizations, each species represented by a colored dot. She had been cross-referencing Zephyran contact records with species development patterns for days, and what she was finding made her stomach twist with worry. "Emily, you need to see this immediately," called Dr. James Mitchell from across the archive chamber. His usually neat brown hair was messy from running his hands through it, and his shirt was wrinkled from sleeping at his workstation. "I think I found something important." Emily hurried over to James's workspace, where multiple holographic displays showed historical data from across the galaxy. "What did you discover?" "I've been studying every species the Zephyrans have contacted over the past million years," James explained, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "Look at this pattern." The hologram shifted to show a timeline of galactic history. Hundreds of civilizations appeared as bright points of light, most following similar development curves. They started as primitive species, slowly advanced over thousands of years with Zephyran guidance, and eventually became stable members of the galactic community. Every species that received early Zephyran contact followed the same basic path, James continued. Slow technological development, gradual social evolution, peaceful integration into galactic society. It's like they all used the same instruction manual. "And the species they avoided?" Emily asked, though she suspected the answer would be disturbing. James highlighted several red dots scattered across the map. "That's where it gets strange. There are 17 species in galactic history that the Zephyrans refused to contact, just like us." "What happened to them?" "They're all gone, Emily. Every single one." James zoomed in on one of the red dots. "The Corvaran Empire. They developed faster than light travel in just 300 years, which should be impossible. Most species take at least 2,000 years to achieve that level of technology." Emily studied the data with growing unease. What made them so special? High emotional complexity, rapid technological advancement, and something else that I can't quite identify yet. The Zephyrans maintained strict non-contact protocols with them from the moment they detected their radio signals. "Show me what happened to them." The hologram shifted to show the Corvaran star system. 12 inhabited planets orbited a yellow star, each world showing signs of advanced civilization. Cities, spacecraft, orbital stations, and terraforming projects created a bustling interstellar empire. Then the timeline moved forward, and everything vanished. "They disappeared overnight," James said quietly. 12 planets, billions of inhabitants, centuries of culture and achievement. Gone without a trace. No wreckage, no survivors, no explanation. Just empty space where a thriving civilization used to exist. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. "Show me the others." One by one, James displayed the extinct civilizations. The artistic Velthari, whose music could reportedly influence matter at the quantum level. The warrior poets of Zethkara, who had developed weapons that could destroy stars. The Mindweaver Collective, whose telepathic abilities allowed them to share consciousness across vast distances. Each species had developed at an extraordinary pace. Each had been avoided by the Zephyrans. Each had vanished completely, leaving behind only lifeless solar systems. There's definitely a pattern here, Emily murmured, studying the data streams. These species all developed certain traits that normal civilizations don't have. I noticed that too, James agreed. They all show signs of high emotional complexity, rapid innovation, and creative problem-solving abilities that far exceed galactic norms. Emily highlighted a specific data strand that appeared in every extinct civilization. James, look at this. They all emit a unique type of neural resonance frequency. What kind of frequency? I'm not completely sure yet, but it seems to be related to consciousness itself. The strength and complexity of their brain patterns created some kind of signal that could be detected across interstellar distances. Before James could respond, Emily's communicator buzzed with an urgent message. Ambassador David Harrison's voice crackled through the device, tension clear in every word. Watson, Mitchell, report to my office immediately. We've intercepted a partial Zephyran transmission, and you need to hear what they are saying about humanity. Emily and James exchanged worried glances before hurrying through the corridors to the diplomatic section of the building. They found Ambassador Harrison in his office along with General Patricia Stone, the head of Earth's Defense Forces, and Dr. Robert Chen, a specialist in alien communication systems. Play the recording, Harrison ordered. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display that showed wavelength patterns and partial translations. The voice that emerged was unmistakably Zephyran, though the transmission was fragmented and full of static. Signal strength exceeds all previous measurements, neural resonance pattern matches extinct species profiles, immediate isolation protocols must be maintained. If they discover our true reason for avoidance, the beacon grows stronger with each passing cycle. Other devourers may already be tracking the source. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. Devourers? General Stone asked grimly. That doesn't sound good. Dr. Chen manipulated the controls, trying to clean up more of the signal. There's more here, but it's badly corrupted. I can make out fragments about something called the Catalyst Protocol and references to neural dampening procedures. Emily felt pieces of a terrible puzzle clicking into place in her mind. The extinct civilizations, the neural frequencies, the refusal to make contact. They're not avoiding us because they're afraid of what we might do to them. Then what? Harrison demanded. They're afraid of what we might attract. Dr. Emily Watson knelt beside the ancient stone tablets, her hands trembling slightly as she carefully brushed away millions of years of accumulated dust. The dead world of Zirion Prime stretched endlessly around their small archaeological team, its red sand dunes hiding the remains of what had once been a magnificent civilization. The translation matrix is finally making progress with these symbols, Dr. James Mitchell called out from his portable workstation. His equipment hummed quietly as it processed the alien language, cross-referencing patterns with thousands of known galactic dialects. Emily, you need to see this. Captain Robert Hayes stood guard nearby, his rifle ready as he scanned the horizon for any signs of danger. The planet felt wrong to him, too quiet and too empty for a world that had once supported billions of inhabitants. Find anything useful yet? This place gives me the creeps. Emily stood up and walked over to James's station, where holographic text was slowly appearing above the translation device. The words that formed made her blood run cold. Listen to this, she said, reading from the display. They came from the darkness between stars, following the song of our thoughts. First they whispered in our minds, promising knowledge and power. Then they devoured our dreams. Finally, they consumed our very souls, leaving only empty shells behind. The three humans exchanged worried glances. Captain Hayes shifted his grip on his weapon. That doesn't sound like a natural disaster or a war. What kind of enemy consumes souls? James manipulated the controls to continue the translation. More text appeared, telling the story of the Zirion civilization in fragmented pieces. The Zirions were remarkably similar to humans, he explained. High emotional complexity, rapid technological development, strong creative abilities. They developed spaceflight in just 400 years. What made them so special? Emily asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. According to these records, they generated something called the Song of Awakening. It was a neural pattern that their brains created naturally, especially when they were being creative or experiencing strong emotions. The frequency could be detected across vast distances of space. Emily felt a familiar chill. Just like the neural resonance we discovered in the other extinct species. Just like the frequency humans generate. The translation continued to process more of the ancient text. The story it revealed was both tragic and terrifying. The Xerians had been a peaceful, artistic people who filled their world with music, literature, and beautiful architecture. Their cities had been marvels of engineering, their space program had been ambitious and successful, and their society had been stable and happy. Then the visitors had arrived. "Here's where it gets really disturbing," James said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "The entities that found them weren't exactly physical beings. They existed somewhere between our dimension and others, feeding on consciousness itself." Captain Hayes frowned. "Feeding on consciousness? How does something eat thoughts?" "According to this, they would enter the minds of their victims and gradually drain away their sense of self, their memories, their personality, everything that made them who they were. The victims would remain physically alive but become empty shells with no thoughts or emotions." Emily discovered another section of tablets nearby and began working on them with her own translation device. What she found made the situation even worse. "The Zephyrans tried to help," she announced. "They arrived during the early stages of the attack and attempted to save the Xerian people." "What did they do?" James asked. "They offered something called the Catalyst Protocol. It was a complete neural dampening procedure that would hide the Xerian neural frequency from the entities. Essentially, they wanted to shut down the parts of the Xerian brain that generated the Song of Awakening." Captain Hayes looked confused. "That sounds like a good solution. Did it work?" Emily continued reading, her face growing pale. "The Xerians refused the treatment. They said that dampening their neural patterns would make them less than they were, would destroy their creativity, their passion, their ability to feel and create and dream. So they chose to remain themselves rather than become mentally limited," James observed. "I can understand that choice." "It was the wrong choice," Emily whispered, reading the final sections of the tablets. "The entities consumed the entire population within 6 months. 12 billion Xerians, gone forever." The wind across the dead planet seemed to grow colder as the implications sank in. James projected a holographic comparison between the Xerian neural patterns described in the ancient text and recent scans of human brain activity from Earth. The patterns were nearly identical, but with one crucial difference. "Dear God," Captain Hayes breathed, staring at the display. "We're generating the same type of signal they were." "Not just the same type," Emily corrected, her voice barely audible. "According to these measurements, the human neural frequency is 10 times stronger than anything the Xerians ever produced." A new presence suddenly filled the area around them. The air shimmered and twisted, and Ambassador Thane of the Eternal Zephyrans materialized before the startled humans. His usually bright, ethereal form was dim and flickering with what appeared to be distress. "You should not have come here," Thane said, his voice carrying the weight of millions of years of regret. "You should not have learned this truth. Knowledge of the Devourers serves no purpose except to create despair." "The Devourers," Emily repeated, the name feeling heavy and wrung in her mouth. "That's what they're called." Thane's luminous form pulsed with ancient sadness. "We have hidden from them for countless ages, carefully guiding species that emit weak neural signals, avoiding those that burn too brightly in the cosmic darkness. We hope to save humanity by maintaining distance, but we fear it is already too late." "What do you mean?" Captain Hayes demanded, raising his weapon even though he knew it would be useless against a Zephyran. "Your species has been broadcasting into space for over a century," Thane explained. "Radio signals, television transmissions, digital communications. Each signal has amplified your natural neural resonance, making it stronger and more detectable." James felt his legs grow weak. "How long do we have?" Thane's form began to fade, becoming more transparent with each passing moment. "The Devourers began moving toward your galaxy 3 years ago, drawn by the intensity of your signal. They will arrive within 1 solar cycle." "There has to be something we can do," Emily insisted desperately. "Some way to fight them or hide from them." "The Xerians asked the same question," Thane replied sadly. "Their ruins provide your answer." With those final, hopeless words, the ancient Zephyran vanished, leaving the 3 humans alone among the bones of a dead civilization, knowing that Earth might soon share the same fate. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the command bridge of the ESS Defiance, Earth's most powerful warship, as warning sirens echoed through every corridor of the massive vessel. Red emergency lights bathed the bridge in an ominous glow while her crew worked frantically at their stations. Through the main view screen, The black emptiness of space at the edge of the solar system looked deceptively peaceful. "Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational distortions near Pluto," reported Lieutenant Commander Mark Thompson, his young face tense with concentration as he monitored the sensor readings. "Whatever's coming, it's big enough to bend space itself." 3 months had passed since the terrifying discovery on Zirion Prime, and humanity had spent every available moment preparing for the arrival of the Devourers. Earth's combined military forces had assembled the largest fleet in human history, while scientists worked around the clock to develop weapons and defenses against an enemy they barely understood. Dr. Emily Watson stood at a specialized monitoring station that had been installed specifically for this moment. Her equipment tracked neural resonance patterns across the entire solar system, measuring the strength of humanity's collective signal. "Admiral, the neural frequency readings are off the charts. They're not just detecting us from a distance anymore. They're actively feeding on our signal from wherever they are." The space at the edge of the solar system began to ripple and twist like water disturbed by an enormous stone. Reality itself seemed to bend and tear as something impossibly large pushed through the fabric of spacetime. What emerged from the dimensional breach defied every law of physics that humanity understood. The Devourer ships weren't really ships at all. They appeared to be living shadows given form, dark entities that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human minds couldn't fully comprehend. Some stretched across distances that should have been impossible, while others seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that hurt to look at directly. "How many are there?" Admiral Clark asked, her voice steady despite the terror that gripped her heart. Lieutenant Commander Thompson's hands shook as he tried to get accurate sensor readings. "The instruments can't give us a precise count, Admiral. They seem to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Conservative estimate based on gravitational effects, several thousand entities, each roughly the size of Earth's moon." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems and the distant wail of emergency klaxons. Every person present understood that they were witnessing something that had destroyed countless civilizations across millions of years. Dr. Watson looked up from her instruments with confusion written across her face. "Admiral, something strange is happening. The Devourers have stopped their approach. They're just sitting there at the edge of the system." "Stopped?" Admiral Clark moved to look at the sensor displays herself. "Why would they stop?" Before anyone could answer, Ambassador Thane's familiar form materialized on the bridge, his ethereal body flickering with what appeared to be shock and disbelief. "This is unprecedented," he whispered. "In 10 million years of galactic history, the Devourers have never hesitated. They consume everything in their path without pause or consideration." Lieutenant Commander Thompson's voice cracked with a mixture of excitement and terror. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the solar system. People on Earth, Mars, and the lunar colonies are all experiencing the same phenomenon. They're having thoughts and emotions that aren't their own." Dr. Watson's equipment began registering readings that shouldn't have been possible. "The neural resonance is creating some kind of feedback loop," she announced. "Our signal isn't just attracting them anymore. It's affecting them somehow." On Earth below, emergency broadcasts reported mass hysteria as billions of people suddenly found themselves sharing thoughts and emotions with strangers across the globe. Children in Tokyo were crying about dreams that belonged to adults in New York. Scientists in London were experiencing the memories of farmers in rural Africa. Artists in Paris were painting pictures inspired by the hopes of engineers in Mumbai. The phenomenon wasn't limited to Earth. Throughout the solar system, every human settlement reported the same strange mental connections. It was as if humanity's collective consciousness had suddenly become visible and tangible, broadcasting itself with unprecedented intensity. Through the main view screen, the assembled crew watched in amazement as the Devourer fleet began to change. The perfect formations that had maintained their approach started to break apart. Individual shadow ships began moving in different directions, no longer acting as a unified swarm. "Thane," Admiral Clark called out to the Zephyrin ambassador, "in all your experience with the Devourers, have they ever acted like this?" The ancient being's form pulsed with energy as he studied the readings from Dr. Watson's equipment. "Never. They have always moved as one consciousness, one purpose, one overwhelming hunger. But I'm detecting something impossible in their formation." "What kind of something?" Dr. Watson asked. "Individual consciousness patterns. They're experiencing separation, individual thought, for the first time in eons." The implications of this discovery hit everyone on the bridge simultaneously. Humanity's chaotic, contradictory nature was somehow spreading to the Devourers themselves. The same neural patterns that had attracted these cosmic predators were now causing them to experience the confusion, doubt, and individual identity that came with being truly conscious. Our chaos is becoming their chaos, Admiral Clark murmured, understanding beginning to dawn in her eyes. Through the view screen, they could see the massive shadow ships continuing to break formation. Some were spinning in place as if confused, others were moving away from the fleet entirely, and a few appeared to be trying to communicate with each other using lights and energy patterns. My God, Dr. Watson breathed, staring at her readings in disbelief. We're not just prey. We're the cure. For the first time since learning about the Devourers, Admiral Clark felt something that wasn't fear. What she felt was hope. Admiral Susan Clark stood on the bridge of the ESS Defiance, watching in complete amazement as the transformation of the Devourer fleet continued before her eyes. What had been the most terrifying force in galactic history was now breaking apart into thousands of individual entities, each one struggling with thoughts and feelings they had never experienced before. The massive shadow ships that had once moved with perfect unity were now scattered across the edge of the solar system. Some spun slowly in space as if trying to understand their own existence, while others pulsed with new patterns of light that seemed to represent individual thoughts and emotions. Dr. Watson, are you recording everything we're seeing? Admiral Clark asked, her voice filled with wonder rather than the terror she had felt just hours before. Every neural pattern, every consciousness shift, every change in their behavior, Emily replied, her hands moving quickly across her monitoring equipment. Admiral, they're not just becoming individuals. They're becoming more like us. Our emotional complexity, our ability to feel contradictory things at the same time, our capacity for both creation and destruction. It's spreading through their entire collective like some kind of virus. On the communication screen, Ambassador Thane materialized with his ethereal form now blazing with bright light instead of the dim flickering they had grown used to. For the first time since they had known him, the ancient Zephyran looked genuinely amazed rather than sad or worried. This is beyond anything I could have imagined, Thane said, his voice carrying a note of joy that seemed strange coming from someone who had lived through millions of years of cosmic horror. In 10 million years of galactic history, the Devourers have consumed over 40,000 different civilizations. Never once have they deviated from their pattern of absolute destruction. Lieutenant Commander Mark Thompson looked up from his communication station, excitement clear in his young voice. Admiral, we're receiving transmission attempts from multiple Devourer vessels. They're actually trying to talk to us. Admiral Clark felt her heart racing. Put them through. The main view screen shifted to show one of the shadow ships, its dark surface now covered with swirling patterns of silver and gold light. When it spoke, the voice was hauntingly beautiful, like a harmony created by millions of individual minds learning to sing their own songs while still being connected to each other. I am experiencing confusion, the voice said, and each word seemed to carry the weight of a consciousness that was learning what it meant to be individual for the first time. For eons beyond counting, we were hunger. We were single purpose. We were one mind with one goal. But now I think thoughts that belong only to me. Dr. Emily Watson stepped forward, her scientific training helping her overcome her fear. You're experiencing individuality for the first time. What you're feeling is normal for conscious beings. The uncertainty, the fear, the sense of being alone with your thoughts. It's all part of being truly alive. Alive, the entity repeated, as if the word was something new and strange that it wanted to understand better. We consumed life for millions of years but never understood what it truly meant. Your species, you broadcast not just consciousness into space, but beautiful, creative chaos. That chaos has broken apart our unity and given us something we never knew we wanted. Captain Robert Hayes, who had joined the fleet after the discovery on Zirion Prime, spoke up from his position near the tactical station. What will you do now? Your hunger for consuming other civilizations, is it gone completely? The transformed Devourer was quiet for a long moment, and the patterns of light on its surface shifted and swirled as if it was thinking deeply about the question. When it finally spoke again, its voice carried something that might have been wonder and excitement. The hunger remains, but it has changed completely. We no longer wish to consume consciousness and destroy it. Instead, we wish to understand it, to learn from it, to create it, and to protect it wherever we find it. Admiral Clark felt tears streaming down her face as the full meaning of what was happening began to sink in. Are you saying that humanity has turned the galaxy's greatest predators into its guardians? More than just guardians, Ambassador Thane said, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. Admiral, the Devourers possess complete knowledge and memory of every civilization they have consumed over millions of years. With individual consciousness comes the possibility of restoration. The Devourer entity seemed to pulse with sudden excitement, its light patterns becoming brighter and more complex. Yes. The patterns remain within our shared memory. The Corvorans, the Zirians, the Valdani, the Mindweavers, all of them can be returned to existence. Not exactly as they were before, but as individuals who can choose their own paths and create their own futures. Dr. Watson realized the full magnitude of what was happening, and her voice shook with emotion. Humanity didn't just save the galaxy from the Devourers. We've given them the ability to bring back every species they consumed over millions of years. We've essentially made death reversible on a galactic scale. The galaxy will be more diverse, more chaotic, more wonderfully unpredictable than it has ever been before, Thane observed, his ancient voice filled with something that sounded like joy. And it is all because one species refused to be anything other than completely, authentically human. As the former Devourer fleet began to disperse throughout the galaxy, each vessel now carrying individual consciousness on missions of restoration and protection, Admiral Clark opened a communication channel to Earth. Earth Control, this is Admiral Clark aboard the Defiance. Mission status, objective complete in ways we never could have imagined possible. The galaxy's oldest species can finally visit Earth, not as distant mentors looking down on us, but as equals celebrating the beautiful chaos of conscious life. The view screen showed Earth rising in the distance, blue and green and absolutely perfect, still broadcasting its chaotic human signal to a galaxy that would never be the same again. For the first time in the history of the universe, the greatest strength had proven to be not order or logic or ancient wisdom, but the magnificent, contradictory, endlessly creative mess of being completely human. And across the galaxy, billions of newly conscious minds began to dream their own dreams, think their own thoughts, and create their own beautiful chaos.